Greetings from Taiwan. My name is Kim Wong. Welcome to this special edition of Youth Speak, an exhibition debate that promises to take us on an exhilarating intellectual journey. As a former debater myself, I am honored to be your host today. This exhibition debate aims to showcase the exceptional English critical thinking abilities of Taiwanese youth. Since its debut in 2015, the National High School English Debate Tournament has become a platform that encourages the development of eloquence and persuasive skills in English. In this public forum debate, we invite two exceptional teams in this year's tournament for an exhibition. For the pro side, the coaches, Ms. Wendy Lee and Mr. Randolph Gao, with two debaters, Chen Zhuoyuan and Chen Sichen, representing Taipei Private Caixin School. And for the con side, let's welcome the coach, Mr. Stephen Shi, and debaters Liu Pingshen and Lin Jiayu from Taipei First Girls High School. Besides, we are honored to have a panel of experienced coaches serving as judges today. Please welcome Ms. Steffi Ouyang from National Tainan First Senior High School, Mr. Charles Kocher, debate coach and trainer from Fulbright, and Ms. Yvette Wu from Putai Senior High School. These veteran judges will provide their feedbacks and insights at the end of the debate. Now, get ready for a thought-provoking and engaging debate where we deliberate one of the most pressing controversies of our time. Let's dive right in and enjoy this exciting journey together. The proposition for today's debate is, on balance, the world will be a better place if there are fewer languages.
Pro-constructive speech, 4 minutes.
Good morning, judges and debaters. The pro side stance resolved that, on balance, the world will be a better place if there are fewer languages. The United Nations 2018 quote, up to 95% of the world's languages may become extinct or seriously endangered by the end of the century. This might sound discouraging on the face of it. However, language serves as a tool for communication. Having fewer languages means people around the world can communicate more effectively with fewer language barriers, which brings huge benefits to individuals and the world. Having fewer languages, first, connects the indigenous minorities to the world, second, boosts international business success, and third, facilitates knowledge spread. These leads to a better world where people enjoy a higher standard of living in a more equal, prosperous, and inspiring world. Contention 1. Individual well-being. According to the United Nations 2018, the majority of the languages that are under threat are indigenous languages, and it's estimated that one indigenous language dies every 2 weeks. As proved by Zhou, a linguistic professor of Hong Kong University, the dying of these languages is an inevitable result driven by globalization and cultural interactions. Many indigenous people give up their native languages to fit into the society and secure employment, so that they can lead a better life. Rosenblatt's 2011 study reveals that the Maori populations in New Zealand face pressure from urbanization and globalization to assimilate into the dominant English-speaking society. Maori youth even perceive their mother tongue as a barrier to job opportunities and career advancement. This example shows that preserving mother tongues is not fulfilling the indigenous people's best interests and can even be harmful for their well-being. According to the News Lens 2021, many indigenous groups are the minorities who suffer from poverty and constant lack of healthcare. Their most urgent need is to connect to the global community, get better job opportunities, and improve their life. This can only be achieved if there are fewer languages in the world, not more. Contention 2. International business success. Having fewer languages leads to better success in international businesses. Research has shown that linguistic diversity poses challenges in the workplace. Stull and Tung 2015 found that language barriers hinder effective communication and collaboration among team members from different linguistic backgrounds. Universidad del Zulia 2019 shows that misinterpretation of messages, misunderstandings, and difficulty in conveying complex ideas accurately are common issues that arise with more languages. Additionally, Lemhover 2019 points out that language-related difficulties lead to slower decision-making process and lower productivity levels. All of the above are undesirable for the success of international business, which is crucial for the overall global economy. If there are fewer languages, international businesses thrive more and the overall standard of living increases, which leads to a better world.
Contention 3, spread of information. Gary and Rick 2016 quote, when there are fewer languages, it's easier for people to converge on a shared language, which can lead to fast and more efficient transmission of information. Faster spread of information enhances creativity and innovation by providing access to diverse perspectives and advanced research, fostering the emergence of novel solutions and advancements. This empowers individuals from whatever background to tap into a broader knowledge base, fueling their creative thinking and contributing to innovative ideas that are beneficial to global development. Rapid information sharing during emergencies like earthquakes or tsunamis is vital for saving lives and aiding recovery. Timely dissemination of critical information through social media and real-time communication systems enables quick updates, coordination, and informed decision-making. This results in efficient resource allocation, effective rescue operations, and improved global collaboration. Fewer languages contribute to reducing suffering and speeding up recovery from unavoidable disasters. In conclusion, the pro-sides believe that having fewer languages will make the world a better place by reducing language barriers, which brings a better life to the indigenous minorities, more success to the international businesses, and more innovations to global community. Thank you.
Constructive speech, 4 minutes.
Honorable judges and fellow debaters, good morning. We, the con side, strongly disagree that on balance, the world will be a better place if there are fewer languages. I'll start with defining the phrase better world. The con side defines better world as a world in which the population's well-being, compared to the status quo, has improved in aspects including safety, development, and harmony. It is important to state that the resolution says fewer instead of one, so we consider arguments about losing all languages irrelevant. The three main contentions we believe force the rejection of this resolution are: first, fewer languages decreases cultural diversity and identity. Second, a decrease in linguistic diversity aggravates racial discrimination. Third, the loss of languages negatively affects a country's development. I'll now begin our first contention. Language is the carrier of culture. It reflects the history of nation building and development, the place of residence, and the values and beliefs of an ethnic group. The disappearance of languages leads to decrease of cultural diversity. Furthermore, language is an essential factor of forming the identity of people. Humans use language to identify a specific cultural group and distinguish it from others. According to those mentioned above, our claim is to maintain cultural diversity through preventing the decrease in the number of languages to make the world a better place. Cultural identity is important when regarding the resolution because it allows a nation to unite together. While the impact of having fewer languages decreases a sense of cultural belonging among individuals, empathy and understanding in the society will also be diminished. This will result in a less harmonious and inclusive society, which does not correspond with the resolution.
The following contention is that conflicts and discrimination between races will also be aggravated through the process of having fewer languages, resulting in a rather unfriendly environment. If the number of languages were to decrease, certain peoples would lose their original language and be forced to use foreign languages. Those people would become a part of vulnerable groups, which could be called language refugees. The cultures that marginalized tongues represent are likely to be felt as inferior, exacerbating cultural racism, the concept that one culture is superior to another. According to a report from the New York Times, Asian Americans are twice as likely to have a college degree than the average American, but they are also least likely to be promoted into managerial and executive ranks. Under this situation, society will evolve hierarchy and cause frequent bullying and discriminatory behavior, leading to conflicts or even wars, which does not result in a better world. The third contention is that the disappearance of certain languages negatively affects countries' development. If a country loses its official language, the governance of a nation will be forced to reorganize. The economy and education of the country is going to be severely impacted, as well as the economic values of the language industry. As a result, the expansion of the entire country will stagnate or even decline, which is a stumbling block to the progress of a better world. Also, multiple languages are spoken in different structures that provide diversity in thoughts, whereas having fewer languages limits human society's innovation, creativity, and knowledge. In conclusion, we believe that the drop in the number of languages has negative impacts on the world due to the fact that it decreases cultural diversity and identity, making society harder to unite. And furthermore, it aggravates racial discrimination, resulting in a less harmonic society, as well as hindering overall development. Thus, we, the con side, strongly disagree that the world will be better if there are fewer languages. Thank you.
First crossfire, 3 minutes.
The pro want to first question that, do the con have any evidence proving that language actually have a correlation to identity?
Yes, we can provide evidence to your side, and the evidence shows that cultural diversity, cultural identity is grounded to cultural diversity. And if there are more languages, if there are fewer languages, we believe that it will harm people's national identity, which will further and has an influence on a nation's development and unity.
The Consite would like to ask if you agree that the disappearance of indigenous languages can force their speakers into a culturally disadvantaged position.
We believe that that is not true because these people want to have a better life. And so they would choose to give up their mother tongue in order to speak a majority language to have better job opportunities.
And then the pro's second question will be, the con mentioned the government reorganization in the third contention. However, will the official languages that will vanish, which affect the whole country, be the minority languages?
Well, we believe that no matter which languages disappear, there will always be victims. So the victims of these languages which disappears will be their government will be forced to reorganize, and this will negatively impact a country's development, and also their social norms will have to be forced to integrate again. And of course, minority languages are often the target of languages vanishing. But even though they are minority languages, this is also an imperative issue, and we should view this as a negative impact of having fewer languages.
So, do you agree that if some languages are lost, the situation will form a cultural hierarchy and lead to discrimination?
I'm sorry, can you rephrase your question?
Do you agree that if certain languages are lost, that this situation will form a cultural hierarchy and lead to discrimination?
Social hierarchy is not totally based on language. So even if a language is lost, social hierarchy will have a lot of other things that forms it. And the next question of the pro will be, why do the discrimination against the language refugee and cultural racists happen?
Well, we believe that if there are fewer languages, so first of all, there must be victims because, like the pros I mentioned in their constructive speech, most of the cases are minority languages, and if they disappear, they will have to force to speak another language, which we believe will be a mainstream language, and they will be put in a culturally disadvantaged position, which will make them be discriminated by the considered superior side, and that's how discrimination forms. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pro rebuttal speech, 4 minutes.
Responding to the first contention about the loss of diversity and identity, we do believe that having diverse culture is important. However, culture nowadays can be preserved with AI technology. CoEDL and Google utilize TensorFlow for transcribing and building AI models, reducing the transcription workload and saving countless hours. This project develops an AI language entertainment engine with video, audio, and written materials, featuring a 3D avatar for teaching the language. Additionally, the AI engines fills language gaps, generates written forms, and facilitates translation between languages.
CoEDL and Google have revolutionized cultural preservation through technology. Traditionally, preservation relied on written documentation, visual imagery, artwork, or oral recordings. However, advanced technology now allows for comprehensive and efficient recording. AI advancements capture entire events, incorporating video and audio. 3D scanners preserve environments from multiple angles. These technological advancements simplify the task of safeguarding languages and cultures, making preservation more accessible and streamlined. Moving on to refute their second contention about discrimination, we believe that an increase in the number of languages would worsen discrimination, as it could lead to people who speak dominant languages treating those who speak their native languages with a sense of superiority. This could result in biased treatment and the creation of language-based divisions, further perpetuating existing inequalities. Moreover, the Consite argued that individuals who are forced to learn a dominant language due to the disappearance of their mother tongues might face discrimination. However, we contend that discrimination against these indigenous communities stems from factors such as ethnicity, skin color, and religion, rather than solely the absence of their native languages. Once again, we would like to emphasize that language serves as a powerful tool for fostering connections among individuals, enabling mutual understanding and embracing the diversity that exists among people. So by having fewer languages, these individuals can promote empathy and appreciate the unique perspectives of others, not causing discrimination.
Responding to their third contention about official languages dying, the Khan side mentioned how the death of an official language can lead to obliged governmental reorganization and have further consequences afterwards. However, the pro wants to emphasize again that the dying languages are the minority and indigenous languages, which will not be the official language of any nation. Therefore, the Khan's claim on the death of an official language, which brings a lot of negative impact, actually has nothing to do with the topic, as these are not the languages that are dying. Moving on to the second part of the third contention, what the Khan tried to emphasize by seeing this contention is that diverse thoughts has a positive impact, which is about good collaboration. However, to achieve that, there must be effective communication among people involved. Without good communication, whether or not there are diverse thoughts doesn't necessarily matter, as people cannot even understand one another. This is why the pro considered this claim invalid, for merely having diverse thoughts does not lead to such a positive impact. Moreover, the Khan did not give an actual example that benefits from this. Hence, instead of believing in such a vague concept, the pro stated that communication is what leads to such an effect is more understandable. So the pro considered this claim invalid.
During the crossfire, we asked the Khan side for evidence to show the support that language has anything to do with identity. Although we do see that identity is important for individuals, for the minorities, however, we do not see in the evidence that language is the only way that has any connection with identity. So we believe that identity is based on personal values and not about languages. Thank you.
Calm rebuttal speech, 4 minutes.
Honorable judges and fellow debaters, good morning. I will start with extending our first contention, which is that having fewer languages reduces cultural diversity. The Universal Declaration on Cultural Diversity quotes that it promotes linguistic diversity at all levels of education, with respect for the mother tongue, and encourages multilingual learning at an early age. As for the Taiwanese government, they announced a law named the Development of National Language Act to promote inheritance, revitalization, and development of all the languages that are used in Taiwan. Another example from the Constitution of Finland states that everyone living in the nation has the right to maintain and develop their own language and culture. The National Education Commission also emphasized that the mother tongue is important because language represents a person's heart, emotions, identity, and thinking. Among these instances, protecting language diversity is an urgent task that governments around the world are putting effort into. From the policies and declarations from different nations, we can clearly see how cultural diversity plays an important role in a society, and that it helps to unite and consolidate a country. Without cultural diversity, the bond between people will not be as strong as it was before and stops people from accessing the social benefits. It is obvious that linguistic identity and belonging have a huge and positive impact on human society. Having fewer languages loses such benefits and therefore does not reach the resolution of a better world.
Next, I'd like to refute the pro-side's first contention, which mentioned about indigenous groups' well-being. They claim that having fewer languages allows certain ethnic groups to get access to more job opportunities and resources, which the pro-side regards as well-being. However, the phrase well-being means the state of being healthy, happy, and connected to the society. While good mental health is a fundamental premise of well-being, losing their mother tongue puts the indigenous people into a culturally disadvantaged position. In fact, speakers of minority languages worldwide experience disadvantages in society, education, and work. Such problems are apparently a stumbling block to well-being and a better world. We do acknowledge that physical well-being, such as better opportunities, are also important. But the pro side also mentioned that it is a natural trend that forces indigenous people to give up their mother tongue and to use mainstream languages. But this actually indicates that language barriers can also be overcome by speaking a dominant language in the status quo. Their first contention is thus considered lacking uniqueness. Their second contention was about language barriers. But as mentioned above, effective communication can also be achieved in the status quo. As I mentioned, it is indeed globalization that makes efficient communication needed. However, the goal of global efficiency can be accomplished regardless of the number of languages. Indigenous people can speak the dominant language while keeping their own group's culture and identity. The pro side's second contention is therefore invalid. They also mentioned the diffusion of information, creativity, and innovation. But firstly, the inefficiency of rescue is not due to the number of languages, but inequality between urban and rural areas. Second, a loss in linguistic diversity means a loss in innovation and the knowledge and ideas accumulated by the culture. If there are fewer languages, these knowledge will not be able to be diffused, which will not make a better world. This indicates the invalidity of their third contention. They also mentioned in their rebuttal speech that the most crucial part of Better World is business and economy. However, the con-side would like to highlight that the resolution says a better world, but not a better certain region. Economic development merely benefits developed countries, while identity influences every aspect of society. The significance of latter is apparently more than the former. Above was the con-side's rebuttal speech, and we strongly disagree that the world will be a better place if there are fewer languages. Thank you.
Second crossfire, 3 minutes.
The first question of the pro will be, under any circumstances, should we respect the Aborigines' free will to decide what language to speak?
Well, of course, we should respect their free will of deciding which languages to speak. And as the pro side mentioned in your constructive speech, you indicated that these nowadays indigenous people chose to speak mainstream languages on their own, and the purpose is to build effective communication with the external world. And this actually indicates that using a dominant language such as English or other languages will be more effective, will make a more effective communication than using their mother tongue. And this actually indicates that effective communication can also be achieved in the status quo. And we don't have to reduce the number of languages. And we can also preserve the certain ethnic groups' culture while they speak a dominant language that builds effective communication.
Thank you.
So, are you aware that the resolution did not mention which languages to be lost, but rather comparing more and fewer languages? Are you aware that the resolution does not mention to limit which languages will be lost?
So they don't have to be minority languages.
But how are these dominant languages are going to be lost or die? Because why languages are dying is because these languages are no longer spoken by people. So we believe that these languages that are dying are by minority groups or indigenous people because their language is not used that often compared to the languages spoken by the dominant language dominant world.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and the next question of the pro.
What's the purpose of preserving a language when we can already use AI technology to preserve one's culture?
Well, of course, our focus is not never on the inheritance of languages. Of course, there are also other carriers of culture that can preserve an ethnic group's culture, but what we focus on is the identity and sense of belonging, which can never be preserved, such as the AI technology or any artificial intelligence. And we believe that these kind of sense of belonging and national identity and unity could never be preserved by an artificial intelligence.
Thank you.
Do you agree that speaking a dominant language can overcome the existing language barriers?
It's true that speaking language can lower the possibility of language barriers from happening. However, we should be aware of the overall feasibility that speaking a common language might cost, and we will put a lot of money and effort in order to reach such a goal. And this is our question: why should we put that much effort and time when we know that speaking a common language would just reach a small impact?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pro summary speech, 3 minutes.
We will first refute to the con-side's rebuttal and crossfire questions, then we'll move on to the comparison. Firstly, responding to the crossfire, the con-side mentioned that identity is really important and has a strong connection with language. However, we believe that identity is based on personal values. So no matter what language they're speaking, they still have their personal values and their own culture identity, which has no connection with language. Moving on, we already gave the evidence that AI technology can preserve culture by using videos and audios to record all these entire processes. So language is the tool for communication. So if we can already preserve the cultures behind that language, there is no need to preserve that certain language because these languages are not going to be used for these indigenous people to speak. Moreover, in their third contention, they mentioned about urban areas and rural areas. When these minority languages disappear, they need to learn dominant languages. However, we want to say that these emphasize again that the disappearing languages are the minority languages. So government won't need to reorganize because dominant languages aren't going to be disappeared. Moving on to the comparison.
Okay, first, we will compare between standard of living and identity. The concept repeatedly emphasized that indigenous people are compelled to abandon their mother tongues, which does harm to their identity formation. However, the pro consider this claim untrue, as the indigenous people tend to voluntarily give up their mother tongue to pursue a better life. Just like the example about Maori people in our first contention, they consider their mother tongue a hindrance in communication, so they make a conscious decision to learn dominant languages, understanding that this can enhance their quality of life. In this case, their identity thus will not be affected by their own decision, since identity is formed by beliefs and values. Meanwhile, the standard of living can dramatically be raised, which undoubtedly benefits their lives by a large extent. This results in a better world, for every individual's life can be ameliorated. Hence, the pro side stands that raising the standard of living of indigenous people isn't only conducive to the minority, but also does not require the sacrifice of identity. Next, we'll compare between info spread and diverse thoughts. It's a fact that we're currently bombarded with a large quantity of information that provokes different thoughts. However, the key of having information is to know it. Otherwise, there's no point to having this much information. Liberties EU 2023. When citizens can access information about public activities, we can make informed opinion about the issues that matters to us. Therefore, knowing the importance of right to understand information and the way each country chooses to uphold it is very crucial. We consider this claim invalid because it did not focus on the core. Understand what one has. Thank you.
Count summary speech, 3 minutes.
Honorable judges and fellow debaters, good morning. I will now extend our core contentions and compare our case with the cons while clarifying our statements in the previous speeches. Our first major contention is that fewer languages reduces cultural diversity and belonging, bringing disastrous impact to the unity of a nation, as well as making the world a less harmonious place. Thus, the importance of cultural diversity and its relationship to sense of belonging should not be neglected. And what's more, universal declarations and constitutions have proven that cultural diversity is a precious common property of all mankind. But this appearance of culture will make their people lose their sense of belonging, and they no longer make contributions if they do not identify with their own ethnic group, which is a major obstacle to the development and progress of the world. Our second argument is that racial discrimination will be aggravated when people are forced to give up their mother tongue and to learn to use foreign languages. We propose Asian Americans as an example, as they have long faced unequal treatment, although they share unity in language with the white people. Notice that by saying aggravating, our side completely understands that there will still be unequal treatment even if there are more languages. However, with fewer languages, the situation will be worsened, which is that both sides look unfavorably upon, since discrimination affects people's opportunities, their well-being, and their sense of agency. Persistent exposure to discrimination can lead individuals to manifest in shame, low self-esteem, fear, and stress, as well as poor health, which is not making the world a better place. Our opponents continually emphasize that people are choosing to learn dominant languages, but at the same time, they question the feasibility of indigenous people learning dominant languages. So we would like to point out the contradiction of our opponents.
Moreover, when a country faces loss of its official language, there will be deep effects on its development, which is our last major contention. The pro side argues in their rebuttal speech that disappearing languages are mostly indigenous tongues. But first of all, the resolution did not mention which certain languages are disappearing. This is a comparison between the world of more and fewer languages, which reflects their lack of acquaintance to the topic. Second, the rights of speakers of minority languages are also important. The economy, education, innovation, and diversity of thinking will be severely affected by the disappearance of languages, hindering their progress to a better world. Next, I'd like to redemonstrate our first contention since the pro side questioned it in their rebuttal speech. The pro side argued that culture can also be preserved by other carriers, but artificial intelligence can never preserve people's identity and belonging. The con side emphasized cultural identity and the sense of belonging that certain languages carry. It is through language that we communicate with the world, define our identity, express our history and culture, learn and defend our human rights, and participate in all aspects of society, which makes it highly connected with unity in a nation and a better world. The concept would also like to note that a resolution says a better world, which means improvement compared to the status quo. However, the pro-side's claim regarding having fewer languages to global efficiency, which is a core contention, can be accomplished even in the status quo. Thank you.
Third crossfire, 3 minutes.
The first question of the pro will be, why did discrimination happen when immigrating?
Well, if the pro-side means immigrating from your own country to another, then we believe that discrimination may happen through some certain circumstances, but one of them would be the immigrants not be familiar with their cultural background. And while these cultural backgrounds are not being familiar by the immigrants, it is language that carries the certain nation's culture. So we shouldn't. So we believe that having fewer languages will cause more certain conflicts of immigrants moving to other countries because they couldn't understand others' cultural background.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The cons I would like to ask, you mentioned that the loss of languages is an inevitable process. So do you agree that not all natural phenomena are beneficial?
We didn't deny that it's possibility of natural procedure. However, this is a beneficial process because that like we mentioned in our contention, the standard of living can be raised and we can have all those benefits besides. So pulling of this claim is not regarding our statement.
Thank you.
We would like to ask, in your summary speech, you mentioned about the feasibility of one indigenous person learning majority languages. However, due to your side, you mentioned that people should learn a common language. So how is that feasible as well?
Well, we did not mention the feasibility. We did not question the feasibility of indigenous people learning a dominant language. What we mentioned in our summary speech was that your side questioned the feasibility of people learning dominant languages, and your side is also called the claim of indigenous people choosing to learn a dominant language. So we consider this statement as a contradiction.
Okay,
So you mentioned that the AI technology nowadays can minimize the language gaps. So does this imply that we can already achieve a fast spread of information?
I think the con did not understand what we mean by pulling up the artificial intelligence.
We pull up the AI technology example is to show that AI technology can preserve one's culture behind one's language, and it has nothing to do with identity, because the concept clearly confuses about why we pull up artificial intelligence. And the reason is because we need to preserve the culture and not identity. We do value that identity is important. However, it's based on the core value that really matters.
I believe that you have misunderstood the question.
Yes, we mean that we should preserve identity, and artificial intelligence cannot preserve a certain ethnic group's
And
identity.
we do not
Thank
deny
you.
that. Thank you.
Pro final focus speech, 2 minutes.
Judges and fellow debaters, I would now like to conclude this round of debate and deliver my final focus speech. Throughout this debate, the concept consistently highlights the significance of cultural identity. However, we maintain that one's identity is primarily shaped by personal beliefs and values, with language representing just a fraction of it. And during the whole debate, we cannot see any evidence provided by the concept that language has any connection with identity. So we believe that this contention is invalid. Additionally, the concept places considerable emphasis on the importance of harmony. However, we believe that indigenous people are getting discriminated against because of their racial backgrounds and religious beliefs. Moreover, the concept mentioned that people should learn a common language in order to connect with outer world. However, they did not consider the fact that learning a common language costs a lot of time and money. So if we can reduce these number of languages, people don't need to spend a lot of time and money to learn a new language. Lastly, the concept emphasizes cultural diversity. While we certainly value diverse cultures, it is worth noting that multiple regions can possess diverse cultures even if they share the same language. Therefore, we deem the contentions presented by the concept as invalid.
Our voting issue is communication. We want to emphasize again that the dying language are the indigenous languages, And to make the world a better place, we should first raise the standard of living of these indigenous people. And having these fewer languages can not only solve communication problems, but also give them more job opportunities and to have a better connection with the modern society. Moreover, we agree that innovation and creative ideas are important, but having fewer languages can make people exchange these creative ideas and thus lead to better human development.
Judges, the pro side gave clear evidence of how fewer languages can make the world a better place and also successfully attacked every contention of the con side. Therefore, we urge the judges to vote for the pro. Thank you.
Calm final focus speech, 2 minutes.
Honorable judges and fellow debaters, it is a pleasure to sum up today's debate, and our side will provide a brief overview of the whole debate, including proposing the advantage of our arguments while mentioning the pro side's drawbacks. The con side believes that having fewer languages reduces cultural diversity in the first place and weakens the sense of belonging in human society. This can hinder a country from uniting and developing, which does not correspond to a better world. While our opponents emphasize that indigenous people choose to give up their mother tongue on their free will, this is in fact a false statement because the radical reason, as the pro side mentioned, is that they are pressured by the society and that they are desperate for job opportunities. During the previous crossfire, our opponents mentioned that they do not deny that artificial intelligence cannot preserve cultural identity. In other words, they agree that using AI to preserve identity cannot lead to satisfactory results. This is also an agreement to our statement that the only way to keep identity is to keep languages alive, which is our voting issue.
All the refutations the pro side made questions the relationship of our contentions with the resolution, which we've restated the authenticity in the summary speech and gave clear evidence during the first crossfire section. The pro side's contentions also lack in uniqueness and validity. Their core contention has been proven invalid since efficient communication is still feasible when not having fewer languages, while we still prevent the disappearance of languages as well as the subsequent harms. They also continuously emphasize how indigenous people chose to speak dominant languages, and it is their right we couldn't deprive. However, they also question the feasibility of minority groups speaking dominant languages, which shows that the pro side wasn't able to make coherent conclusions twice in this debate. Conversely, the con side detected their flaws in the speech and successfully rebutted them. We also presented logically coordinated arguments, including the aspects of culture, knowledge and innovation, and the impact on society. This reflects our acquaintance with the topic, and we believe our assertions are reasonable and well demonstrated. Thank you.
That's the end of this debate. Debaters, please wait outside.
Thank you all so much for this wonderful debate. It's a pleasure to be able to judge it and provide some feedback for you today. I would also like to thank Taiwan Plus for hosting this exhibition. I hope that it will provide the Taiwanese public with some understanding of how some high schools in Taiwan are developing students' critical thinking abilities through the use of academic debate in the classroom and beyond. The judges have conferred, and we have come to the conclusion that the con team won today's debate, and will now provide some general feedback that can hopefully inspire the debaters for the future. For the pro team, we think that they attacked the con case very well in the first half of the round, but ultimately we think that in the second half of the round, the pro team failed to further develop their own constructive speech arguments, and in the end, it sounded much more like they only attacked the con side instead of developing their own arguments, which ultimately was a weakness in the end. Additionally, we think that the pro team did themselves a disservice by not engaging in definition debate in this round. We think that if the pro team provided its own definition for what a better world is, it would have allowed them to control the framing of this debate and allow them to make their arguments a lot more useful for them and counter against the con team much more effectively. For the con team, we were particularly impressed by their crossfire abilities. We think that the questions and answers from the con team were very good in this debate. However, we regret that both teams failed to use what they learned in Crossfire to develop their arguments within their speeches. We hope that in the future, teams will be able to take what they used in Crossfire and apply it to their speeches so that it can continue the debate rather than exist as an isolated part of the debate that doesn't intertwine with the speeches. We also think that the con did exceptionally well when they made the debate very easy to understand for the judges in the final focus. They brought the debate back to the topic and explained very clearly why the judges should be voting for the con team. When you do this, it's very persuasive and it allows the judges to feel very comfortable with what they are doing, which is voting for your side. So breaking it down, giving a lot of examples, painting a big picture for the judges makes it very simple to vote for you in this debate. Ultimately, we think that the third round of Crossfire was the best in this debate, but as we mentioned before, we wish that there was more utilization of Crossfire questions and answers in the speeches later on in the debates. So one final comment for the pro side is that the discussion of value and belief systems was not unpacked very well, and we think that the debaters would have benefited from clarifying what these words mean, because these are very big words philosophically, and culturally as well. So we think that if they were to explain this a little bit more, it would have allowed them more access to their arguments that they worked so hard to develop in their constructive speech. And this also would be a way to further develop those arguments later on in the round, as I alluded to earlier in my comments. Ultimately, thank you so much for being here. You all did fantastic.
Thank you, debaters and judges. Now, that's a wrap.
After watching today's debate, I will say your performance was just awesome. Right, Randolph?
Yeah, I have to say I'm really proud of you. And it's really good that you have the chance to get on the screen.
Would you like to share what is the most unforgettable experience throughout this journey of learning English debate? Stanley, you can go first.
Okay, I think the most unforgettable part of this glorious journey is the collaboration. So I think this will be an unforgettable moment throughout the debate.
Through all these trainings and the tournament, I came to realize that to win a debate, it's not about how strong your voice is, it's about how clear your mindset is and how organized and structured your refutation are.
The most important thing, not just winning or losing, but whatever that is, the growth and thinking skills, I think that's the most precious gift. So really proud of you guys today.
Well, first of all, congratulations on winning today's debate. And I'm so proud of you, and I also think that you've also done a great job. So I believe that during the whole process, you must have learned a lot. So is there anything that you would like to share? There's something that you learned during the whole process?
Well, I'd say that I improved a lot on my impromptu skills, and also I learned how to look for useful information on the internet and to put them into my speech, and also how to cooperate with my team.
I would say that my critical thinking ability definitely improved a lot. Also, the skills of presenting a well-delivered speech. And I think this is a great opportunity for all of us.
So again, I'm so proud of you guys, and I also look forward to next year's tournament. I hope that I can see you coming back.
Thank you for watching Youth Speak special program, an exhibition debate on public forum. If you enjoy this special program, follow and subscribe to Taiwan Plus on all our social media platforms for more. See you next time.